Thanks, everybody. I'm very, very happy to be here. A little new at speaking, so take it easy on me. But I'm really glad we made it all safely here, and thank you for having it not rain today. I really appreciate that. So first of all, I need to disclose that I am not actually part of the engagement team. Our engagement team is actually run by Dr. Dara Richardson-Heron, who has done just an exceptional job with her team at doing some, I think, some seminal work in really conscientious engagement. And I'm very proud and humbled and honored to be able to stand up here today and tell you about the excellent work that they've been doing, of which I've been only a very, very tiny little piece. So much thanks to them. So I think first and foremost, we talked a little bit about what precision medicine is, but I wanted to introduce you back to our program and talk about all of us. We first need to talk about that precision medicine. And precision medicine at its core is a democratic enterprise. It's about tailoring medical treatment to the individual and their situation as well. So it's really about whomever and wherever they are. It's the right treatment for the right person at the right time. So we already have a bit of this out there. You think about eyeglasses and blood transfusions. These are examples of precision medicine, but I think we can all admit that we're not where we need to be, and that there are costs to the approach that we take for the majority of our medical care. There are costs to the patient, which includes needless suffering. There are costs to providers and the inability to provide the care that their patients need at the time that they need it in a context that they can use it. And there's also costs to researchers. I mean, we're performing our research in these silos, and we're not sharing the information and the money, to be frank, in a way that allows us to build something that we can all use and that we can all learn from. So really actually stifling our intellectual growth as well. So I'm happy to say that we're sort of on the cusp of change, a really dynamic change. And that we're hoping that the All of Us research program will be part of that revolution. So you got a nice overview to the All of Us research program. I feel a little bit like I'm going to repeat myself here, but so All of Us is a consortia that's bringing together some of the most innovative minds on the front of science and research to build a diverse cohort of individuals who can form that basis for intellectual growth for multiple different types of researchers. So one can distill our program down to 4 fundamental pieces. There's the engagement, the enrollment, and the collection of data from participants. There's also the transfer, the curation of that data, the storage of that participant data. And after the second phase, there's sort of a fork in the data processing. One is the delivery of that information into a resource that researchers can use, and the other is actually flowing back to the participants themselves through the return of information. Since we're going to be talking a lot about engagement in the latter part of this talk, I'll save that for later. But so let's talk about enrollment. The program is heavily reliant on digital technologies, and while this may stifle participation in some demographics of the US population, we're working on avenues to ameliorate that. But the fact of the matter is that the internet has reach that we could only hope as a traditional program to have. So because we're aiming to be a genuinely national program, we need to make ourselves available to participants in as many places as we can. So there's the direct volunteer pathway that really leans most heavily on digital engagement. And this is almost a wholly self-directed and self-navigated approach. We're working with consortium partners to enable specimen collection through things like local clinics, but also even home visits at certain points. And we are also contributing to the Sync for Science pilot program, which capitalizes on the HIPAA right of patients to access their medical records to donate electronic health records to the database. We envision that that direct volunteer pathway will eventually become the primary mode of engagement with the All of Us research program. But at this point in time, most of our participants come through what we're calling the Healthcare Provider Organization pathway, or the HPO pathway. And this is significantly more high touch. So this is where healthcare provider organizations, federally qualified health centers, and regional medical centers actually pave the way and recruit participants into our fold from parts of their patient populations. So we're asking a lot of our participants. We're asking for not only their consent and their electronic health records, we're also asking them to contribute survey data and physical measurements and provide biospecimens, which we are planning on performing both whole genome sequencing as well as a series of assays. And we are experimenting with the collection of data from wearables and digital health apps. So initially, because we're aiming to be such a diverse and actually oversampling from underrepresented populations, there will be some initial selection for the participation in all aspects of the program to ensure that we do have that cohort diversity. But later on, we're hoping that, funding allowing, we will be able to expand that to anyone who wants to participate, can participate in any aspect of the program. So as Bob mentioned before, we have sort of what I think of as a quite innovative way to think about the data that we're collecting. Instead of having the data go out to the researcher, we're bringing the researchers to the data. The data is actually housed in an enclave, and anyone who wants to use that data will have to use it within that enclave. It's a measure of security that we can put up to ensure that our participants have the maximum privacy associated with the data that they so generously donate to us. But we are serious about making this resource available to all users. That means anyone from a community scientist or a high school student for a health class or science class, all the way up to preeminent researchers at major institutions around the world. I talked about the different data types. Those are the data types at the beginning of the program. We're hoping that this is going to be a program that lasts 10 years to lifetimes. And that means that over time, we may expand the type of data that we want to collect, but that there are steps that have to be taken first. We were going to start small and grow over time. We're adhering to the highest privacy and security standards. I'm sure you're going to hear a little bit more about those, or have heard a little bit more about those during these 2 days. And the data resources will be centralized, as I mentioned, in that enclave. They're going to be tiered according to the sensitivity of the different types of data. And that researchers actually don't have to tell us exactly what they want to do before they get access to the data. It's kind of amazing that, if you as scientists are probably used to writing grant proposals. I know I've written lots of grant proposals in my lifetime where we have to kind of iron out exactly what we want to do. This is a much freer way of thinking about science. It's a way that stimulates that ingenuity that comes with just experimenting. And as long as it's done safely and as long as it's done in a way that can be audited, we don't see anything wrong with that. But it needs to be safe and it does need to be audited. So the information about what people are doing in their individual workspaces will need to be posted. It will be made public. And the public can actually flag things that they think are a misuse of the data. And those will undergo review. So Bob mentioned our core values. I'm going to mention them again because I actually think it's a really good way of sort of talking about engagement. And this is where I'd like to focus in on our engagement strategies. And there are 4 of these that I feel are particularly salient here. The program, first and foremost, will reflect the rich diversity of the United States. So here's a study from Pope Joy and Fullerton, and this is just GWAS. This is Genome-Wide Association Studies. And you can see here that the vast majority here are white. These are participants in GWAS. This is embarrassing. This is 2016, okay? Racial and ethnic minorities make up over 1/3 of the American population right now, and that proportion is growing over time. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing, to embrace that diversity, but there's one avenue where we haven't done that, and that is very much in science. And underrepresentation is not just about racial and ethnic minorities, it's also about things like age and sex and gender and sexual orientation and socioeconomic status and educational attainment and access to education. It's also about geography, rurality versus urbanicity, access to care, disability status, and there are more facets of underrepresentation. If we aim as a program, as the All of Us research program, to truly represent the diversity of the United States, we have to think about an intersectional strategy towards diversity. We have to think about diversity in its many facets. And we also have to recognize that one engagement strategy isn't going to work if we lump everybody who is not a middle-aged white male into one group and everybody who's not into the other. It's one engagement strategy isn't going to work for that other group. Moreover, one engagement strategy isn't going to work for, say, LGBTQ populations. One engagement strategy is not going to work for African American or Asian or Latino. We need to think about diversity in its many forms. And as such, we have employed a diversity strategy that is flexible, that is based in geographically different places, that leverages multiple strategies to reach communities. And we'll talk about some of these more in depth a little bit later on. But we're hoping that this network will actually pave the way for other researchers, that we are acting as emissaries and ambassadors for the entire research community, as well as just improving the uptake of the All of Us research program. But when we're talking about diversity, I think we would be remiss, and we've heard a little bit about this morning, but I think it bears mentioning again that when we're talking about enfranchisement of historically underrepresented populations in research, we need to talk about the fact that the research community has not been particularly kind to minority and otherwise sort of special populations in the United States. Everything from Henrietta Lacks and Tuskegee to the Havasupai tribe, to the dioxin prison experiments. We have trust to rebuild, massive amounts of trust. And that's going to be a hard road, it's going to be a long road, and we need to commit to that early on. And I'd like to think that the All of Us research program has. And there are a lot of factors that are involved in that commitment, and we'll expand on those, but I think we need to think about that trust as a major, central part of our mission. We're here to build a scientific resource, but we're also here to think about the people that we are working with and their needs. So we need to rebuild that trust and create value through the program. It's not enough to take, we also have to give back. I think the first step towards that is thinking of our participants as partners in this endeavor. Okay? They're not subjects, they are partners. They are major stakeholders. And a really fundamental piece of this is participant autonomy. That people have a control over their level of involvement in the program. They have control over their data. And they have control over things like how much they want to share and when they stop sharing that information. On the research that's done with their results, we have, they're broadly allowing us to use their data for research, but they need to be able to say, stop, this is not okay, and point to it and say, you need to review this and make sure that this conforms with the standards of the program. And a part of this autonomy, I think, is really remembering that, and this is, I think, a very good lesson for life in general, but that yes means yes, and only yes means yes. Everything else means no. If somebody doesn't sign a consent form, you don't push results to them. They have to tell you actively that they want those results returned. Otherwise, you need to respect their decision and say, that's a no for right now. They can change their mind, but until they tell you yes, it means no. And not only this sense of control over themselves and their own participation, it's also control to a certain extent, or a voice and seat at the table, which may not be enough, but that we need to integrate them into the actual fundamental parts of the planning process and the governance of the program. So we have participant partners who are telling us what kind of data we should start being collected, what lab analyses we're going to run on the samples that we're collecting, what research we want to conduct with those samples, and how the data is actually returned to people in ways that are respectful of their needs. So right now we have 2 participant representatives that have been with us since very, very early days and who are heavily involved in the program already. There are 7 new participant representatives who came on last month, and they have begun participating in the governance structure of the All of Us research program. And we have 21 additional participant representatives who are going to eventually be onboarded and integrated, but who are currently acting as subject matter experts in various groups and committees. So we talk a lot about trust, the All of Us research program, and I think the only real way to earn that trust is through going out there into the field, talking with people, and also being 100% honest. So that trust is going to be earned through robust engagement and full transparency. And part of that is leveraging trusted intermediaries to speak for communities, but also to relay information. We sit up there in our sort of government ivory tower of NIH, and we're very removed from those communities. And I think it's presumptuous of us to think that we could just walk in somewhere and tell people that they should participate in our study because it's awesome, you know? That's first of all, I think they laugh us out of the room. Second of all, that's not very respectful. And third of all, I don't think we should walk in there at all without being invited. So a big part of what we do is to partner with organizations who do have the power to broker that invitation, who have the ear of people in their communities, and also who can tell us a little bit about how to approach that community with respect. And I'm putting this up there. This is a fraction of the people that we work with on a regular basis. But these organizations have pretty far reach across the country and speak to different elements of the diversity that we are trying to reflect with our cohort. They also put on events as well to both introduce their communities to the All of Us research program and start to broker that interaction between the program and the individuals in their communities. So far, we've had 273 activities in 30 states, which is approximately reaching 2.6 million, sorry, 2.6 wouldn't be very good numbers, 2.6 million potential participants, which is pretty significant. We don't have numbers about the turnover from potential to actual participant from those events, but I think our numbers speak for themselves. We have right now, I think 75% of our current participants fall into some bucket of underrepresented in biomedical research, which is pretty staggering. And I think a large part of that is up to these these community partners who have really gone the extra mile to make the All of Us research program both reflect and respective of their communities. So this is a little bit about their events. They've done fairs, they've attended different larger events, they've written certain op-eds and really gotten out there, and it's been kind of exciting. I kind of wish I was invited to some of these, but unfortunately I don't get to go. So the other part of this, and I think this is in part reflected by the reach of our community partners, is that we really need to meet people where they are. We can't expect them to come to us. So another thing that we try to do is bring the program in its very elemental existence out into communities. We have one bus, the bus we call it, or the All of Us Journey, which is a small sort of traveling exhibit about all of us and what it means to participate and what we're trying to achieve. It's been driving around the country for the last year it's I think attended over 200 events now. And we are expanding to make sure that we do have the reach that we want. There will be a second journey that's going to roll out sometime end of this year, beginning of next year, that will actually have an onboard specimen collection aspect as well. So another part of this is we need to provide clear, comprehensive, and convenient resources for people to both learn about and interact with the program. And we've got a bunch of different things going on. We have our FAQs, we have our website, and we have educational videos, etc. But we also have a wonderful partnership with the National Library of Medicine and the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, who are helping us to get the message out through libraries, which is a great place to learn. So there are 3 prongs of that approach. There's community education, community engagement, and there's the All of Us learning platform. Community engagement includes different events that happen throughout throughout the various sites on that network. There are sort of key players in that network who have been responsible for organizing events in their area. And those we can think about things like they have presentations and reading clubs, they have information kiosks in libraries, they're partnering with other community groups to hold events, and they're creating tools and resources for different parts of their communities. They're also holding office hours, which I think are a great idea and that have been really successful so far, just having people there who can answer people's questions when they come into the library. But in addition, the National Library of Medicine is developing a learning platform to allow people to engage with information about the All of Us research program through various technological and computer-based learning modules. And those are things that are as basic as health literacy, but can also get into the depths of things like what are we hoping to achieve with the data that we are actually gathering from the program. There are different delivery methods, there are webinars and courses, there's games, so hopefully things that will appeal to a broad range of people. And there are also activities that are organized around these. There are workshops, there are actual science projects where you can get together with other community scientists and use the resources eventually when those are published to work on your own science. But I think possibly the biggest part of the engagement strategy is the fact that we need to do a lot of listening, and I think we do that. But it needs to be a central facet of what we do. Because, again, we're isolated in our NIH environment. And one person can't embody all of the traits of diversity that we're looking to enfranchise in the program. And so we need to think about the specificity of this situation of the communities that we're trying to engage. And we need to listen to them about what they want, what they need, and what they expect. We have various different methods for people to give us input. There are ways to engage with the program through the support center, through the website. People can drop us a line. People can drop us a line on social media. There are obviously the participant representatives who are giving us their perspectives on their participant lifeline or their experience. And there's also going out into the communities and talking with them. This has been an approach we've taken with the American Indian and Alaska Native communities, and we've been doing a lot of listening there about the special needs that they have. I mean, it's not only a nation within a nation, it's also a group of people. It's actually over 500 groups of people with very specific concerns that we need to reflect in the way that we engage with those communities. So there have been a series of meetings over the last year. There's an initial report that's come out. It's posted on our website, which you can read. That talks about the issues that we've covered, but also where we're hoping to go and how we hope to work with the tribal communities to make a program that works for them as well. And I think, so another aspect of this is that when we talk about participants participating in the All of Us research program, we need to create value. And some of the greatest value that we can offer is the information that we collect. So another tenet of our engagement philosophy is the fact that participants will have access to information about themselves. Studies have shown that this is actually one of the major reasons that people participate in research in the first place, is they want to learn more about their particular situation, their particular condition. And this is actually something that the All of Us research program can offer through that return of information. So we're offering people an opportunity to help fight disease for future generations, to be part of this movement of people who are causing this shift, to ensure that people in their community are represented, but also that, again, learning about themselves. And it's a long-term relationship that we're hoping to build with people, and we're hoping that it will grow over time when we build that trust. So the return of information is actually pretty comprehensive. People will have access to a lot of the information that they donate to us, and some of it they may have never seen before. A lot of people have never looked at their electronic health record, and we're hoping as a program to be able to offer that. They'll be able to see comparative insights, how their information that they've provided to us stacks up against the entire cohort, how various assays have turned out. So we're talking about running some basic assays on the blood and urine specimens that we're getting from people and that return of information. There's also aggregated results from the cohort at large, but there's also the scientific findings. So as people begin to use the data in the data resource, what do they find? And how can we give that back to participants in a meaningful way and to their communities as well? And also information about the program itself and how they might continue to participate in research that might be of interest to them. So those are other avenues that we're investigating. Somehow this started over. I'm not going to make you suffer through the rest. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where we're going now, okay? So at present, I mentioned that we have about 75% of our current participants self-identify as belonging to one or more groups that have been historically underrepresented in biomedical research. That is 75% of over 100,000 participants. 60,000 of those participants have already authorized the release of their electronic health record. So that's a fairly rich data resource right now, alone. In the future, and in the near future, we've made awards, actually, I think they should be coming out rather soon, about our genome centers, where we will start doing some initial genetic testing and whole genome sequencing on samples. We will also be running a specific set of assays yet to be determined, but we're on the cusp of being able to tell you exactly what those are. But we're also talking about our position as the All of Us research program, because right now we're really the Some of Us research program, and we don't want that to continue. So we have to think about broadening our inclusion. One big avenue of expansion would be children. Right now, we can only take people who are at or above the age of consent. We also can't currently enroll people who are decisionally impaired, and with, Alzheimer's is going to be a huge issue in the very, very near future. So this is a very needed population that we need to be able to engage. We also can't currently enroll or engage with incarcerated individuals, and as all of you probably are very well aware, this is a population that has been massively understudied with huge repercussions of incarceration. We, I think, have a duty to offer them some form of benefit from this study as well. And we can't call ourselves All of Us without that being a part of our plan. And as I mentioned before, the American Indian and Alaska Native tribal populations. That's going to be a much longer conversation. As again, I said, we want to do this in a way that's very respectful. So talks are ongoing, but we are full of promise and hope. So we are also looking at expanding in terms of the outreach that we're doing. So we're talking a lot about outreach to participant populations, but I think especially as we begin to return information to participants, the people that they're going to go to first are going to be their providers if they have one. And we need to think about properly preparing the provider population for the onslaught of those patients, asking them questions. And how do we give them the information that they need, both about the program, but also about what the results that they're going to see mean, and how that they can talk about those with their patients. So that's another part of the engagement effort. And also, I think one fundamental piece for us is that we as a country are a patchwork of languages as well. And so when we talk about engaging people from different communities, we need to talk about linguistic communities as well. Right now, all of our materials and the entire experience is available in English and Spanish, but that doesn't encompass the entirety of the American population. So we need to think about how do we facilitate not just enrollment, but the entire All of Us research program to people who do not speak either of those two languages. That's going to be a very, very heavy lift, and we have to think about it, over 10 years or more. So something that we're working on, and we hope to make some progress in the near future. So I will stop there and take questions, and thank you all for being here this morning.